places. Well, after a game last night that featured a couple of dramatic swings, tonight we saw more of the same. The Thunder, they got up early in this one, up by as many as 25 points. Thanks to some high-powered offense, but then Minnesota responds with a dominant fourth quarter that sent this game into overtime. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with a good look there at the end with a chance to tie it up, but Oklahoma City falls just shy 131-128 here inside of Paycom Center in overtime. As we welcome you back into the building and into Thunder Live, I'm Paris Lawson. This is Royce Young, and this was a really dramatic game for a lot of reasons. I mean, it's the second night of a back-to-back, a tough back-to-back. These two teams faced off less than 24 hours ago out in Minnesota last night, and then you come into this building, the Thunder looked like they really had control of this game early, Royce, but then Minnesota with a massive, dominant fourth quarter without Anthony Edwards on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, if you kind of go through the tape on this game, you know, the Thunder really played a great three quarters of basketball. And the one thing about it is we've seen the Thunder do this all season long, Paris, of build big leads throughout games and then really put teams away. And this is a good lesson to be learned from here in a lot of ways, because the Thunder weren't able to do that against the Wolves, kind of had some defensive breakdowns, 41 points for the Wolves in that fourth quarter. And then obviously with the way that Minnesota approached OKC down the stretch in that one, basically completely doubling SGA. It was almost like a triangle and two on SGA. And really, look, we can go back and watch the game. I feel like the Thunder's process was pretty good on solving that in a lot of ways. Thunder just didn't make shots. It was really the inverse of last night's game where the Thunder knocked down a bunch of big fourth quarter shots. And there was a lot of good looks throughout that fourth quarter that a number of different Thunder players had, and they just didn't make them. So, you know, I feel like the process was pretty good in solving that, just didn't have the ball go in the basket.
Well, another interesting element to this game is this is the first game that the Thunder has played in overtime all season long. So a lot of good clutch time experience. That's really hard to replicate, that the Thunder's certainly going to try to extrapolate the lessons from this one and use it moving forward.
No question about it. And again, I think that, you know, you see teams make kind of extreme adjustments against OKC, and that's what we saw the Wolves do. They were desperate, and so they tried to take the ball out of SGA's hands as much as they possibly could. And look, those are good things to learn from. The Thunder are well equipped to kind of handle those sorts of situations. And again, I think as you go through it, you're going to see that the Thunder got great looks for good players. Those balls that went in last night, they didn't go in tonight. So, you know, that's the way you end up blowing a 22-point lead in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, a lot that went into this game, and I don't think anybody expected an overtime game on the second night of a back-to-back for these two teams. But here we are. Let's bring in Chris Fisher and Michael Cage, who are on the call for all 53 minutes of this game. Guys, what'd you see out there?
Well, 48, not enough. And for the second consecutive night, these two teams go blow for blow. But tonight, Michael, some uncharacteristic finishing from OKC. When they've gotten up by 20 points this year, they do not relinquish leads. So this fourth quarter, this overtime, a stunning way for Oklahoma City to lose this game.
Well, it's a lot you can learn from this game. This is the first game the Thunder really had, first overtime game of the season. You've been on cruise all season long. You've done all the little things, but you got to give the Timberwolves credit, man. They found a way to muck the game up. They got to the free throw line. They only had 7 free throw attempts at halftime. They ended up with 39, so 32 free throw attempts in the second half. Give them credit for that, for being able to just, keep the game real choppy. And then they made their free throws when they got there. The Thunder shots, I like what Royce talked about. The Thunder got the shots they wanted. They were good-looking shots. The shots fell last night. They didn't fall tonight. You can live with that. But this also, you talked about how they converged on SGA. But the Thunder also had some good looks around the basket, could not get those in. And this is one of those games where, in the course of an 82-game schedule, you learn from this because, this game kind of came unraveled over the final maybe 24, 26 minutes. It's just something to learn from. It hasn't happened all season. First overtime game, as I mentioned, and you lose it.
Yeah, just a reminder, the Thunder played the second fewest one-possession games in the NBA this year. This is just the fourth one. I believe this is game number 57, so a great way for Oklahoma City to learn going forward because we know the playoffs are coming quickly.
Yeah, no better experience than going up against a team like the Timberwolves, who have played the most clutch time games so far this season. So a lot of lessons to learn from this one. Chris and Mike, thank you so much. We'll see you a little bit later in the show. Now, for those of you who tuned in the fourth quarter, you saw a very tightly contested game. You saw a lot of action, but you missed a big portion of this game, and that's the story of how the Thunder was able to get up and build that 25-point lead in the first half. So let's take it from the second quarter, Royce, because the Thunder's offense, it was humming in the first half of this one, shooting above 55% from the field and the three-point line.
Again, both teams second night of a back-to-back, so kind of equal footing there. But I thought the Thunder really had a little more pop early in this one, and maybe getting on your home court helped there. But the Thunder's offense looked really good throughout much of this first half, and really defensively, the Thunder were sound and solid as well. But you'll see it here. I mean, the Thunder doing a lot of the things that they like to do: get the ball into the paint, drive it downhill, score there, or look for shooters spread out on the perimeter.
Yeah, we saw a lot of different guys also getting involved offensively. Very balanced attack from Oklahoma City, as to be expected on the second night of a back-to-back, trying to get as many guys involved as possible. The other element to this, Royce, the Thunder's defense in the first half had a lot of pop to it as well. That was a really nice response after last night's game in Minnesota.
No question. We've seen it a lot right here already, of just the Thunder either getting a stop and getting out and using that to run, or what they do so well is this: turnovers.
Yeah.
Alex Caruso with incredible hands, kicking ahead to J-Dub, who's running the floor. And that's where the Thunder are so lethal, and they can take a game that feels like it's 2 or 4 or 6 and turn it into 15 really quickly.
Yeah, the Thunder held Minnesota to just 17 points in the second quarter. Meanwhile, they put up 32 of their own. A lot of offense, a lot of defense, really putting it all together to put together a really dominant first half where they were able to build up a lead as many as 25 points.
No question about it. And again, the Thunder's process looks so good here with the high screen there from Hartenstein, SGA knocking it down. And again, this is a theme of the game. The shots went down early. I don't know if that's a tired legs thing. Second night of a back-to-back. Again, Cage mentioned it, of the way that the Wolves kind of got their points down the stretch in this game. We see a lot of these shots going in these first three quarters, Paris, and they just kind of stopped going in for the Thunder, while the Wolves were able to score kind of in the interior off the free throw line and stuff.
Now, this third quarter is interesting because the Thunder's offense is going to continue humming the way we saw it in the first half. The difference, however, is Minnesota's offense is going to start to catch a little bit of rhythm. Where they had 17 points in the second quarter, they ended up with 35 here in the third, just to kind of trim down that 25-point deficit a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the Thunder, they built a 25-point lead, but they never really got the full-on haymaker knockout punch on the Wolves, like you said, Paris, because the Wolves did a good job in the second half of scoring the basketball. But the Thunder obviously did a good job as well in this third quarter, scored 38 in this third quarter themselves.
Yeah, a lot of different guys getting involved. You'll notice a lot of different players scoring the basketball. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with an incredible night, 39 points. He had it going offensively, as he always does. But the thing about Oklahoma City, that ball movement, it was on point throughout the first three quarters of this game. The ball was really zipping around the perimeter, finding different players, and look how they're able to get into the middle of the floor here for SGA.
Absolutely. And, the Thunder did such a good job of kind of solving that early in the game. This is the Wolves kind of starting to break out what they wanted to do, playing that kind of hybrid zone look. And the Thunder did a good job. Again, the process is really good here. What they were able to do in the first three quarters a little better than they were late is they got into the paint with it. I love the sequence how they finished this quarter. That's an unbelievably high IQ play from J-Dub, not just grabbing that rebound, but turning it into a pass to Wiggins, and then Isaiah Joe getting on the floor right here, kicking it ahead. Dub goes downhill, and Aaron Wiggins not quitting on the play, gets the put back. It felt like this might have been kind of that haymaker right there, Paris.
It had that momentum feel to it. The Paycom Center crowd certainly loved it, but the Thunder's offense, it was humming through three quarters, and the fourth quarter is where the well kind of dries up for Oklahoma City. You'll see them knock down a couple of shots here, but this quarter ultimately will belong to Minnesota, who really unlocked their offense, put in 41 points in this frame.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see it here. Once the Thunder get to 121 points, they stop getting points. So that's kind of what happens here in this fourth quarter. And again, so many of these shots, you feel like that this was that was it. That was going to put him away. And the Wolves, to their credit, did such a great job. It was these types of plays, though. I mean, SGA's just a little off. The timing was just a little off. Could have had Dub there for an alley-oop, and instead it turns into 2 points the other way. And this is where the Wolves start kind of turning the game around here, is where the Thunder, you feel like at any given moment, they're going to hit that knockout punch. They're going to hit the final dagger, but the Wolves just wouldn't let them do it.
Yeah, you're going to see Shai Gilgeous-Alexander getting downhill. It still feels like the Thunder is fully in control of this game, doing what they've done the entirety of the game, getting stops, running, getting out in transition, finishing those good looks out on the break. 121 points, as you mentioned, Royce. This is where the tide really shifts in Minnesota's favor. 15-0 run from here on out to tie this ball game up.
And again, the Thunder got pretty good looks here, but credit to the Wolves. I mean, that's a high degree of difficulty shot from Naz Reid. He has proven that he is capable of hitting those, but the Wolves were able to keep scoring, and the Thunder got a little sloppy here defensively, got beat off the dribble a number of different times, just didn't do what was necessary to really just close the game. And this, again, the Wolves, what they did as they kind of just continued to play is they were able to seek out some some matchup options. And you'll notice here also, no Isaiah Hartenstein. He got a bloody nose in this one and never came back in the game. Obviously, the Thunder without Chet Holmgren. So OKC was kind of forced to adjust on the fly with no traditional big man in on the game.
Now, one thing you will notice, no Anthony Edwards out on the court for Minnesota. This was very interesting. The dominant factor for Minnesota offensively, Jaden McDaniels, who really lit it up and kept Minnesota going offensively. There he is making a really good pass into the interior, knocking down that mid-range jumper. And it was really interesting to see Minnesota thrive without Ant on the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's a lot of times you see this with coaches that the group on the floor is playing well and he just kind of wants to roll with them. And that's what they did. You feel it right here. Caruso, this is the Thunder solving that zone right there really well. Caruso getting to the free throw line, driving downhill. And then this upcoming sequence. I mean, these sorts of plays just feel like this is how these types of games get decided because the Thunder have the ball right here. They do such a good job here. Lou Dort coming over, feels like he makes an unbelievable play. But then, like you mentioned, Jaden McDaniels picks his pocket from behind and then air ball. And there's apparently a foul here that
somewhere in there
at some point. It only seemed coincidentally to happen after the ball didn't go in the basket there, but that's a huge call in that spot right there. No argument from SGA about it. Naz Reid knocks down both free throws here.
And neither coach has their challenge at this point. And so you have to go with what the officials call on the court in that moment. A really critical play for Minnesota. SGA going to try to get downhill. Anthony Edwards makes a really big play right there at the rim. And Minnesota able to call a timeout here with the ball.
Yeah, and OKC gets a final look here to try to force a second overtime. And SGA gets a pretty good look here. Minnesota didn't choose to foul right there, up 3. SGA gets a shot off. We've seen him make that sort of thing so many different times. But as this game kind of finishes out here, Paris, it's one of those in those final 4 minutes. Really, if the Thunder could have honestly made one shot, they would have won this game. And they just weren't able to knock down one shot that they generated in that final 4 minutes.
Yeah, you see the final numbers from this one. The free throws are the massive, massive number that stands out to me because at the end of the first quarter, the Thunder had 10 free throw attempts. Minnesota only had 1. And by the end of this, you saw just how massive that margin was between the Thunder and the Timberwolves, how they were able to just continually keep that scoreboard moving by getting to the free throw line.
And again, I mean, the Thunder were forced to make their shots to get their points, and the Wolves were able to get to the free throw line, where obviously it's an incredibly efficient place to score. So, maybe that's some of the elements of those tired legs. You're not doing as good a job of containing the ball. You're a half step behind at different times. The and one that I think McDaniels had there that was what tied the game. It was Alex Caruso, obviously a first team all defensive type of player, just kind of got beat off the dribble and tried to swipe at it. He's got great hands, ended up fouling on it. So that's one of those areas where that second night, maybe that had played that little bit of factor there of just not being able to shuffle your feet and stay in front of your man.
Yeah, a lot of different elements and factors that went into this game. The Thunder are certainly going to take as many lessons from it as possible. But for now, let's get you over to the press room so we can hear from Thunder head coach Mark Daigneault postgame.